Hello everybody, welcome to our last week of school and therefore our last week of art. So this tutorial ended up being a little bit longer than I expected, and I know that this is a shorter week and you might have some stuff to catch up on. If you feel like you can't finish this one up, or you truly cannot finish this one up, let me know, that's okay. If you feel like you can do this one, that's great. We're going to be learning how to do faces, and truthfully we could take lots of lessons to learn how to do every part of the face. This is a simplified version of how to do a face, even though it is quite a long video. But with that said, let's begin. Okay, so the supplies we'll need for this project are a piece of paper, a pencil, an eraser, a straight edge of some kind, and a pen. So we're just going to start out with our pencil, eraser, and straight edge to begin with. The first thing we need to do is we need to very lightly draw a straight line down the middle of the paper. Now, if you don't make a perfectly straight line, that's okay. And it actually does not need to go all the way from the top of the paper to the bottom. It just needs to sort of hover in the middle right here. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to draw a big circle at the top of this line. But in order to see what the size of the circle is going to be, we need to make a mark about 2/3 of the way down the line. So about 2/3 of the way would be right here. Okay, now our circle's diameter, which means its width, is going to be as long as the line is from the tip to this 2/3 line. Basically what that means is make sure that the top of your circle touches the tip of the line and the bottom of your circle touches your 2/3 mark. If you would like to, you can grab something from around your house that is about this size and trace your circle, but this circle doesn't need to be perfect. This is just a guideline. So make sure we're doing all of these lines very lightly, because when drawing faces, it's easy to make mistakes and you sometimes have to erase quite a bit. So let's move on to our next step. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to split this line, this diameter line within the big circle, into 4 parts. So when I split things into fourths, I like to draw a little notch in the middle because that's easy to eyeball. And then, now that I have a new sort of segment, draw a line in the middle of that, and a line in the middle of that, and it's split into fourths. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw horizontal lines on each of these marks, as well as on the very tip of our line. So if you want to use your straight edge, you can, but if you feel like you can freehand a horizontal line, go for it, because remember, this, again, is just a guideline. We will be erasing it later. So don't draw very lightly at all. I'm just barely dragging my pencil across the page at this point, so that I can erase it easier in the end. All right, so we've got 5 horizontal lines. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure we have the tail of our circle at the right length. So each of these little fourths is a measurement we're going to refer to as segments. I would like this line to go down 2 segments length from the bottom of the circle. So let's measure with our fingers 2 segments, so 2/4, and then keep your hand frozen, move it down. Okay, it looks like my line is already there. So I'll just make my mark here and make a mark in the center of this new little tail. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a second circle. This circle is going to be 3 segments in diameter, so its width or its height is going to be 3 segments long. So let's draw that smaller circle just like this. If you've got another thing around your house that's circular that you can use to trace and is about this size, go ahead and grab that and draw that circle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make another horizontal line right here. And we're going to label these lines. Well, I'm going to label these lines. If you think it would be helpful, then you can too. But you can just sort of follow off of my guide that I have on the screen so that you don't have to write this out if you don't want to. But I'm going to label This line up here, the top line, this is gonna be our hairline. This one, it's easier to call it the center of the big circle. This is our eye line. I know, it feels like this is way too far down to be where the eyes are, but it'll make sense in a little bit. This is our nose line, and this is our lip line. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we are gonna draw the outline of the head. So the way I like to think of this is, imagine you had a big rubber band and you were going to wrap it around these two circles. So the rubber band would follow the circle up here, but then it would stretch across the gap between these circles right here, go along down this way, along the bottom circle, stretch across, and then go back up. Okay, so go ahead and do that really quick. Now remember, even that is not something that we want to push down really hard with our pencil for. All of these are basically going to be guidelines. We will go over them later with a pen, but right now just keep it light so you can erase it later. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the eyes. Now, we're going to be on the eye line right here. This does feel very weird. It feels like it's way too far down to do the eyes, but if you look at your head, then you'll see the eyes are actually in the very center of your head, at least height-wise. So, right now, on our eye line, we have one horizontal line that is split into two. So here's one half, here's another half. Draw a little notch in the center of each half, like this, and like this. Okay, now we're gonna do a simplified version of the eye because we could do a whole lesson on the eye. But what I want you to do is we're going to draw sort of a rainbow line or a bump over top of each of these notches. And as you're trying to figure out the correct size for this, keep in mind that our eyes are wide enough apart that you could fit another eye in between. So if you can draw your rainbow lines or your bumps so that each one is about the same size, that means that they are the correct amount of space apart and the correct size. Now we don't need this third bump. We're not going to, draw a third eye, so you can erase that. But now let's turn these bump lines into football shapes, or ellipses is another word for it. Try to make them as close to the same shape as you can. One really huge struggle for artists is drawing the other eye, if you've ever heard of that. So if your eyes don't match perfectly, that's okay, it's completely natural. Okay, now go ahead, erase any guidelines that are inside of your football shape, of your eyeball shape like this. We are going to now draw the iris. So the iris is the colored part of your eye. What you want to do for this is we're going to try to draw as perfect of a circle as we can, whose top touches the top of the eye and whose bottom hovers a little bit away from the bottom of the eye, just like this. Let's do that on our other side here. Just like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to draw the pupil, which is the black part of your eye. Great. And another circle over here. Go ahead and give that a quick shade. Okay, now what I like to do for the eyes is I like to add a little reflection right here in the corner. So I just draw two lines like this. And then when you color in the eye, very lightly, remember, because we want it to be lighter than the pupil is, I like to do these sort of radiating lines, almost like I'm drawing a sun or a sunflower. That's kind of, if you look really close, that's how your eye is constructed. It's got lots of little lines going out from the center. So go ahead and do that to both eyes. Remember, keep it lighter than the pupil. There we go, you've got your eyes. Okay, next step is the eyebrows. Now, we are, remember, doing just a simplified version, so the eyebrows are going to match the top line of your eye. They're going to do that sort of bump or rainbow line. Okay, now keep in mind the eyebrows are wider than the eye, so they go farther in towards the center and farther out towards the ears or the outside. This one right here feels like it's going a little too far in, so I'm going to do that. When you do eyebrows, what you might notice is that eyebrows start off pretty thick. So we're gonna draw a line going straight up from the center tips of each of our eyebrows, and then we're going to make the eyebrow get thinner and thinner as it goes to the edge, much like this, and just like that. Okay, now you have a choice right now if you want to adjust your eyebrows at all. Some people have really bushy eyebrows, some people have really thin eyebrows. Some people have slanted eyebrows, or they have flatter eyebrows. If you want to, you can try to make your eyebrows that you draw look like your eyebrows that you have, or eyebrows that you appreciate on, other people who have different genetics. But I'm just gonna stick to these basic ones. So when I color in my eyebrows, I like to keep the lines going sort of like this. It gives you sort of a sense of the direction that the hair of the eyebrow goes. It always points away from the center of the face. At least that's what I found. All right, there we go. So we've got two wonderful eyes and eyebrows, which looks a little weird. So let's continue and finish up the rest of this face. Our next step is the nose. To do the nose, you want to take your pencil and rest it right above the inside tip of the eyeball. Then, without touching the paper, we're going to go down until we reach the nose line and make a little mark. Do the same thing with the other eye and make a little mark right there. Now, this is about the width of the nose. I know right now it feels like that's a little too wide, so we will make our nose a little bit skinnier than this. What I want you to do is make a U shape like this. So the bottom of the U is the tip of the nose. If you want it to be more like a V sort of shape, that's fine. That's kind of what I prefer, but go ahead and do that basic U shape. Then what we're going to do is we are going to make sort of, well, I'm not sure what you'd call these, right angles almost. These are going to be sort of the nostrils of the nose. And then we're going to go to the left side of the nose and follow that nostril line towards the eyebrow. We're going to go in a little ways, but then curve back out so that it matches up with the eyebrow. Just like this. And you've got your nose. Now, when you look at your face, you don't necessarily have a hard line on your nose right here, but we are doing something called we're implying something. So by drawing a line here, the brain automatically thinks, okay, so there's probably, sort of an imaginary line over here, or a place where the face comes toward the viewer a little bit more. It's a little difficult to describe, but the point is we're going to just have one line on this side for our nose. Okay, the next thing we're doing is the lips. Now usually, when you draw a face, if you're drawing like a cartoon face, then your lips might look like this. That's not what we're doing here. Lips are actually a little bit more uneven. So let me show you what I mean. Go ahead and rest your pencil right on the pupil of your eye. Then, without touching the paper, bring it down until we reach the lip line and make a mark. Do the same thing with the other eye. This is a lot like what we did with the nose. Now we're going to make our lips start a little bit, not quite this far, but a little bit inward from that mark that you made. So make two dots that go towards the center from your original marks. And instead of making a flat line for the lips or a completely curved line for the lips, we're going to make two really gentle curves for the lips. Or for the center of the mouth, just like this. Okay, now this looks very weird, I will admit, but that's because we need to add the top and bottom portion of our lips. So go ahead and go a little ways above the center mark for your lip line, and we're going to draw a little U shape right here. Then we're going to draw two little arms that are going down towards the points of your lips. We're not going to go all the way down unless you want to, but this is another case where we are implying where the line goes. Once again, that just means that you don't draw the whole line and your brain sort of connects the dots. Now down here, we're going to draw a bigger U line like this for the bottom lip. And now the lip starts to make a little bit more sense. If you want to, what you can do is erase the lines that are sort of in the way of the lip, and that might make a little bit more sense. Now, if you really want to, you can definitely connect the lines here and here, just like that. but I think I'm going to leave mine blank, like this. Okay. All right, next step is, oh yes, we're gonna do the ears. Okay, this is another case where the proportions don't seem quite right, but we're gonna make a mark at the eye line and a mark at the lip line. That is how far down a lot of people's ears go. So we're going to make a line that goes up and curves down like this. Then we're gonna curve it down towards this line. But right before we get to that line, we're going to go out a little bit and then back in to make that earlobe shape. This is a tough line to do, so if you need to try a few times, that's okay. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Make a mark at the eye line, the lip line, then we'll make a little bump, go down towards the lip line, go out a little ways, sort of swerve out, and then come back in for that earlobe shape. Okay, I know, this all looks very weird. It looks like they have a huge forehead, but that's sort of how the face is built. And when we do the hair, it'll look a lot better, don't worry. To do the details of the ear would take quite a long time, so we're just gonna do a simplified version of that. Make a line like this, and another line like this. Then we're going to make a little notch here and here, and that sort of gives us the idea of the ear, of that little, I don't know what to call it, fin? Curve of the ear? All right, let's move on now to the hair, which is maybe the most fun part. I'm not sure, you can decide. So the hairline, lots of people have lots of different hairlines. The one that we're going to do today looks like this. We're gonna start at the tip of where the ear meets the side of the head. Sketch a line that goes pretty straight up towards the head and then towards the top of the head. Then right when we get in the middle of this hair and center line, sort of like right here, we're now going to make a sharper corner, and we're going to go towards that center notch of the hairline. Then let's bring it down and do a little bit of symmetry so it looks the same on the other side, just like that. And that's our basic hairline. Now some people have something called a widow's peak, which is where the hair goes down like this. You can take a look, if you have a mirror close by or a camera, take a look, see if you have one of those. If you'd like to, you can make your character or your person here have a widow's peak. I personally do not have one, so I'm not going to draw one for myself. All right, at this point, I'm going to show you guys how to do two different types of hair. We're gonna do long hair, we're gonna do short hair. Short hair is more typical for guys, long hair is more typical for girls. So if you have a preference for which one you want to draw, then I'm going to do the short one first. You can skip ahead to the time on the screen to get to the long hair, if that's what you would prefer. All right, what I like to do for short hair, well, for any hair, is I tend to like to do the outline first. So we're going to give this guy some sort of classic hair that has a part over here, and it's going to parallel the top of his headline, maybe go out and sort of have a little bit of a sharper curve or sharper corner than his head does. You know, his head is pretty smooth, and up here it gets there's a few corners. Now what we're going to do is grab your eraser, either on your pencil or a pink eraser like this. We're going to erase all those lines, all those guidelines that are inside the shape of this hair, like this. Okay, I'm going to clean up my hairline. It looks a little odd, I feel like. Maybe it's a little too pointy, so I'm going to make it a little bit less extreme. That looks good. Okay, now to add a little bit of texture to this hair. When you draw lines for the texture of hair, this is where you can get a little bit less exact than normal. So try to have some fun with it. Try to be flowy. When you draw hairlines, we don't want all of them to look exactly the same. It's okay if they kind of run into each other. Do you see how, like this one I'm about to do runs into the previous one? That's just fine. Hair is not always, perfect and straight and wonderful. I personally have very curly hair, and so a lot of my life is trying to figure out how to make these curved lines, work together. And that's what we're doing here as well. When we get to the part of his hair on this side, our lines are going to curve in the opposite direction. And go ahead and feel free to add a few squiggles there too. All right, and there we have some hair. So He looks a little bit like Elvis maybe, right here, that's fine. If you want to, you can go in and add some bumps along the edge to make his hair a little bit less perfect. No, not everyone's hair, you know, looks like a perfect solid shape. It's got bumps where the different portions of hair come up like this. Okay, and finally, we need to do the neck. So go ahead and down to right about where the ear meets the chin. And we're gonna go down a little bit farther. Make a straight line like this on both sides. And then let's curve it out just like this. There we go. So now all you need to do is go ahead and grab your pen and you can go over the lines you drew. Or if you think you can do it, go ahead and erase any guidelines along the face and then you will be finished up. If you feel like you need to go over it with a pen to make it really stand out, that's just fine. And that might be easier too, because if you go over everything with a pen, then you can take your big eraser and just erase over everything. Your pen lines will remain, but your pencil lines will not. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. Okay, welcome to the long hair portion of this tutorial. So I already did the short hair. Here it is. So I redrew a face. That's why it looks a little bit different. But here we're going to discuss exactly how to draw long hair. So the first thing you want to do is, at least for this person, what we're going to do is we're going to draw kind of like medium length hair, I suppose. So we're gonna start over, I think right here is where we're gonna have the part. It's going to sort of jump up like this, go down right near the middle, then we're gonna swoop over above the eyebrow, try to get right behind that ear. So this hair will cover up some of this eyebrow, that's okay. Now I think what we're going to do is we'll have the hair go down like this, right behind the other ear. So then we're going to make the outline of the hair. That's how I sort of like to go about this. So you can follow the same path that the head follows, but then when we get down by the ear, we can sort of draw some hair going out on its own a little bit like this. Then we'll go up like this. Do you see, notice there's a little bit of an indent where we have the part there. We're gonna keep going around the edge of the head, much like this. Then we're gonna go down as the hair falls down and make it go out again like this, much like this. Okay, now we don't need to do this bottom portion here because right here, right below the ear, we're gonna draw the neck, which goes straight down, just like this, and then curves out this way. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got some hair. Go ahead and grab your eraser, whether it's on your pencil or you have one of these pink ones. We're going to erase all of the guidelines that are within the shape of this hair right now. That'll just make this next portion a little bit easier. Now if you want to, you can leave the eyebrow that is covered up by the hair. That's sort of a stylistic choice. Sometimes when people draw long hair like this, they choose to leave that eyebrow just so people know it's there because it's important for communicating the person's expression. That's okay if you want to. I think I personally am going to erase mine in favor of making it look a little more realistic. Now up here, we've got the hair going up a little bit. So what I like to do is draw sort of a few zigzag sort of lines to show how the hair goes up from the head, because it's not a perfect straight line if you push your hair up and take a look at it. So that's what we're going to do. Then we're going to draw a few curved lines down here, just like that. And now to add texture to the rest of the hair, oh, whoops, forgot a few lines. We are going to draw some, well, I guess the best way to describe them is texture lines. So I would start right here, where the part is, and then just draw some curving lines that kind of go and follow the path that the hair would take. Now we're not drawing every single hair because we don't want it to look like a scarecrow, you know, with straw hair. We just want to draw a few lines that indicate where the locks of hair might be, like the groups of hair, just like this. Down over here on the other side, we're going to make the part curve in a different direction. Think about which way the hair is falling so that you can draw your lines like that. Now keep in mind, your lines do not need to all face the same way. Like, make sure you don't draw lines that all just sort of look like this. Try to draw lines that kind of run into each other and are a little bit different from one another, because that's more what real hair is like. Okay, the last thing you need to do is go ahead and take your pen and draw over the lines that you want to keep. Or if you've got the skill, you can try to erase the guidelines with your pencil or with your eraser and just leave the pencil lines there. I find it a little bit easier to do the pen method because once you draw all of the lines with your pen, you can erase everything off your paper and only the pen lines will remain. So I'm going to do that really quick on my own. All right, so now you should have one face drawn in front of you. Your faces may not look like this. That's okay. Faces are one of the most difficult things to draw because our brains are so attuned to the tiny details in a face that they can tell very, very quickly when something is off or when something looks wrong. Not to mention, faces have a lot of, well, very difficult details to draw. So I don't want you to compare your faces to mine. I'm gonna put these away for now. Think about how you have drawn a face in comparison to faces maybe you've drawn in the past. My guess is this one is at least a little bit improved from that. When we draw faces like this, they are very technical and follow a lot of specific rules, so they end up looking a little bit off and a little bit robotic. That's because not all faces are perfect and not all faces are constructed the same way. If you really want to try to improve drawing faces, go for it. Watch this video again. Maybe that can be your project over the summer. But please don't be too hard on yourself if you feel like your face didn't quite measure up to what you were expecting. All right, I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. I would love for you to send me a picture of your faces this week. I think that would be the easiest for turning them in. And I would love it if you would name your person for when you send your picture in. I think that would add a little bit of fun to the mix. So let's see. This guy feels like, feels like a Mark. So I'm gonna name him Mark. This person feels like, I don't know, Tabitha is coming to mind. I don't know, I feel like that's good. Maybe Tabby for short. I feel like that's fun. All right, I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Go ahead and send your pictures to me when you finish up. It's been a pleasure to get to make these videos and see all of the great work you've done so far during this quarantine e-learning experience. I'm excited to see a lot of you next year. Until then.